25 years back, I was not really thinking about batteries at all. So I had to Google it, and I actually found a lot of data. And one of the interesting reports which I got was from NewTech, which is Swedish National Board for Technological and Industrial Development. And they had a 130-page report which talked about batteries and batteries for TVs, 25 years, 1994-95, right? And you'll be surprised that this report talked about target price and the performance for batteries to become mainstream. And they actually were bang on with $100 per kilowatt hour, which we talk about now. And we started reading about it last few years back. And I'm happy to share that report. I'm sure you can read it yourself. So, and quite interestingly, we are almost there. So this is something which I thought would be one of my recommendations to us, all of us, and to FICCI and to government, is to really think about that what should be our goal. Should we be talking about EV batteries in the current context, or should we be talking about batteries or fuel cells in the context of what they are going to look like, their performance, their prices, their applications, at least 1 or 2 or 2.5 decades from now. I think that's where the real matter of R&D would be. Otherwise, we would be talking about incremental R&D or incremental improvements into what is currently available. So that's my recommendation number 1, sir, to really sharpen the focus and talk about it. And this could be, as a matter of some ideas, this could be talking about batteries or fuel cells for aeroplanes, for ships, or multiple other applications, because we are already there in terms of cars and other passenger vehicles. This could be also talking about batteries which are biodegradable, because today we are expanding batteries in terms of the way we were doing about plastics and other materials when we really invented them. So that's point number 1. Point number 2, which many people have already spoken about, is about talent. Of course, we have a lot of institutes of repute, IISc, IITs, etc., etc. But my point is not about having those institutes. We have other engineering colleges, as PSA was talking in the morning. But my point is that retaining that talent, having that talent here, and we may all like to talk nice about it, but let me be very, very candid about it. When we were doing engineering and we were studying, we never thought about getting into R&D or even masters. We thought, bachelor's, at the best MBA, and get into a business. And I think it continues even today. Bangalore, of course, is an exception, but it's a limited spot. And situation is not so great even today. I have 2 daughters. One of them is in 12th standard, and I hear all the young people, everybody is preparing to go to Canada, US, and everywhere else, but not stay here. So that's a hard fact. We need to really arrest that. And on top of it, I read a news just 1 week back in Indian Express, which was one of the headlines. One of the premier institutes called DTU in India had to shut down 10 of its master's programs because of want of candidates, and they had less than 1/3 registrations. And the departments are not just Department of Civil Engineering, which is out of fashion. It also includes electronics and communication, by the way. So it's all across. So if this is the situation in an institute like DTU, we are very clear that we don't have the right amount of talent. And you'll be also surprised, Ford Motors battery program, they call it Ford Iron Park or something, is headed by one Indian called Anand Sankaran, who migrated to US in early 90s, and of course in Watkins and all those institutes. So we need to really have those lighthouse institutes. We need to have really those lighthouse kind of projects or attractive places. It's like having a quota of Kochi. It's like having a Hisar of Kushti, etc., etc. You can have multiple examples, and it creates a fan following for people to get into that. So that's my point number 2. And point number 3, which I have, is again from the government's point of view, is to create some kind of technology parks, some kind of R&D hubs, R&D innovation parks. It's like creating smart cities where you invite people. You need to first create infrastructure. You need to create and invest in those labs. You need to create in that culture. I think this is very, very important for us to really have that kind of ambition being met. Otherwise, probably we run a risk of just having this as a program but not really following it through. So this is my really recommendation. Thank you.
Wonderful. Very good. Now, Mr. Naran Goswami.
Thank you, and really appreciate the opportunity. Yeah, I just want to make it a little interesting. So 4 facts and then 3 suggestions. Welcome to the wonderful world of pharmaceutical R&D. Quick question to all of you. As you know, the process of pharmaceutical drug discovery starts with the preclinical stage. Then you have phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 trials. You apply to the regulator. If you get the approval, you bring the drug to market. Then there is a phase 4 post-marketing side. Can you guess how many molecules need to enter the preclinical stage for one molecule to be approved by the US FDA? Any guesses?
Yeah.
5,000 to 10,000. So roughly median 7,500, 8,000 new molecules enter at the top of that funnel for one to get approved. So that's one interesting fact. 10% of candidates that enter a clinical trial actually make it to the FDA proposal stage. It takes on an average 1.2 to 2 billion US dollars to bring one molecule into the market. Sometimes we find it difficult to convert $1 billion into Indian rupees, so $1 billion is about 7,000 crores. So you're saying about 10,000 crores is what is invested for one new molecule, innovative molecule to be launched. That's the size that we're talking about. 30% of these costs are incurred even before a clinical trial starts. So we're talking about very, very significant investment. And where I want to differ a little bit from what some of the panelists were saying, the science parks will come, the buildings will come, the equipment will come, all of that is going to happen. It's not labor arbitrage when it comes to R&D, because this is the size of investment and that is the size of the market. Getting a scientist at 30% lesser salary, that's not what is make or break, when you're looking at R&D. So what is make or break, and therefore what are the suggestions? There are a few key building blocks that global companies, particularly pharmaceutical companies, I mean, first of all, let's appreciate the fact that R&D and indeed manufacturing is no longer geo-limited. I mean, if you look at the Pfizer vaccine example, which people are aware of, here is a vaccine discovered in Germany, made in the US, shipped across the world, so that's how connected the ecosystem is. So we have to compete with the world if we want to bring R&D investment into our country. What do we need to do? Number 1, number 2, number 3 is IP. Without intellectual property protection, a robust IP regime which is at par with the world, we will not be able to get that R&D into the country. Because this is how companies are making these choices. They're looking at these environments and saying, where do these environments exist? And it's interesting, so the 3 examples of the 3 areas I talk about may require the PSA office to engage with 3 ministries. And if you can play that convening and catalyst role, a lot of this can move forward. So if you're looking at IP, DPIIT being the nodal ministry, IP is complex. We understand there are issues of compulsory licensing, patentability. Let's leave those aside. What about the operational issues? What about, for example, a patent notification system? What about the fact that there should be a way in which a patent holder should be aware if any other company is filing an application to make that drug as a copy? Today we don't. We get to know only when we see a product in the market. So a patent notification system that allows us to take action if there is patent infringement. It's very simple to do. You already have a Sugam portal. You just need to make it available to everyone, right? Number 1. Number 2, pre-post grant oppositions. You have an IP law where anybody is allowed to challenge a patent application before the patent is granted. However, can we not limit that to, let's say, 2 years? Please put all your challenges in 2 years. After 2 years, grant the patent and move everything to a post-grant challenge. Today, it takes us 8 years. There are people who sequentially challenge patent grant. Once one challenge is disposed, then comes the next, then comes the next. Delays the grant of patent by 8 years. In the world of pharmaceuticals, 8 years. So there is somebody in this room, God forbid, who's a cancer patient, who's not going to get that drug for 8 years, just because the patent has not been granted. Right? So you have got those issues. Regulatory data protection, I just put these points down. I know PSA office is noting these down. The intellectual property appellate board has to be reconstituted. In the IPR policy, there was a vision for dedicated patent desk in some of the key courts. That has not yet happened. We need expertise to dispose of IP issues. IP is not simple, it is very, very complex, particularly when it comes to biologics. So these are some of the recommendations towards IP and where you can facilitate. I will quickly point out two more. Regulatory. Again, we were talking about interoperability. There is a global organization called ICH, International Council for Harmonization. The minute a country is a member of ICH, trial approvals, FDA approvals become interoperable. Right? You come to the same standard as the world. India is not yet a member of the ICH. We believe India should. That's going to help global companies bring technologies, our companies send technologies. Last point I want to make, maybe just two quick ones. One on pricing. You cannot delineate R&D investment from the market. R&D happens in countries where the innovator or the investor also sees a marketplace which can be commercially viable. So we have to look at our pricing regulations when it comes to pharmaceuticals in the light of, can we encourage through pricing regulations an ecosystem where more new drugs are discovered in India. If you're going to spend 10,000 crores to bring a new molecule into the country, the last thing you want to be looking at is the minute that molecule comes, you're going to have a price control. That's not going to work. We've got to find other ways of enhancing affordability and access. The last point I wanted to make was actually, and this was made earlier, public versus private. Right? I don't think we need more public investment in R&D. I think we need more private investment in R&D. We spend 40% of our GERD is private. In the US and in Europe, it's 80%. So we've got to bring companies to come and invest in research and development, not have the government invest in research and development and then try and find a way to commercialize that. So IP, regulatory, globalization, alignment with global standards, and that's the work that can be done with the Ministry of Health and Drug Regulator. And lastly, pricing and commercial viability, which is work that can be done with the Department of Pharmaceuticals.
Thank you so much. It's a short time, but you have been able to give a real required intervention. So, without Srivastava.
Thank you, sir. Just be brief. Yeah, I will try to be very brief. First of all, I am from GlaxoSmithKline, and I would say the inaugural session was mesmerizing as well as inspiring. So really appreciate Professor Ajay Kumar Sweet, Principal Scientific Advisor, other delegates off and on the dais. And thank you, Dr. Sripati, and PSC office members and FICCI for this opportunity. We are looking at a framework of 25 years from now. So really honored to be part of this important conversation. I will quickly cover a few points basis be learning from my existing organization and whatever we can further customize to make it more palatable in the journey which we are planning for 25 years from now would be kind of filter it out and accordingly customize. So I just say one thing about GSK is we were a pharmaceutical, a vaccine as well as a consumer goods company. So the focus was spread out. But in this year, the year 2022, we demerged the consumer goods section and we are now focused specifically on vaccines and medicine. So we wanted to focus on biopharmaceuticals and we carved a journey for 10 years. We wanted to touch 2.5 billion patients. So in a way, we set a target. So I think focus and a target setting for 25 years from now is one area which we could potentially look at. Second is, I was going through a report. If you see independence, our life expectancy was around 35 to 40 years. Now it is 70 years. We added 30, 35 years in our lives. And if you multiply with the number of people we are, so many years have been added in terms of workforces, be it doctors, be it engineers, so a lot has happened. But if you see a report, a Lancet report, it says 10 years goes into disease and disability management. So there's a lot of focus needed on enabling regulations which supports prophylactic interventions like vaccines as well as therapeutic interventions. And for this, I think we are doing a lot on children immunization, but there's a need to look at adult immunization as well. So that's one point. The second point which I wanted to say is with respect to FDIs, pharma is doing really well. And if you see the journey so far, we are innovating. So there is an incremental innovation which is happening, and now with COVID, we migrated to the journey of exponential innovation, I would say. And then the future is incremental plus the real innovation plugged together. And for that, as Ma'am Manmeet said, the FDI policies are very instrumental. So the FDI policies are there, so we also need to have sectoral policies. The way Sharad has covered, I think he covered that there's a need for a harmonized framework to enable, what is being done here goes there, or what is happened there comes here. So a harmonized framework is very much needed. Apart from that, there's another point which I wanted to highlight is industry-academia partnership. There's one program which GSK itself is doing, the Regional Center of Biotechnology, which focuses on biostatistics and bioinformatics. So how do we encourage these streams which are very critical to support the innovation of tomorrow? These are help in designing clinical trials, reduce the possible risk around it. So these are the streams which we should be looking at. Apart from that, to bridge the gap between industry and academia, there's a larger need to industry to be engaging with academia in designing the curriculums. Like there are certain courses around biostatistics where GSK people engage and try and input to the curriculum. So whosoever learns it, comes out from the college is more industry ready. And then the third point which I wanted to mention is around the geo thing. It is across the globe. So global capabilities. And if I talk about GSK, we have a global capability center based out of Bangalore. And it has expertise around clinical trials, biostatistics, global regulatory safety sciences, medical engagement, excellence, publication operations, project management. So in a way, the skill sets of India has already been leveraged. We need to enhance it further so that we do more and more. And the last bit is the focus on artificial intelligence and machine learning. These are the two big areas which are, if you see globally, these are the trends which have been adopted to reduce the risk when you do a clinical trial and as well as increase the efficiency. So these are the few set of recommendations which I wanted to put it across. Thank you.
I was asked to just go immediately after him till somebody comes in. So, but I'm representing Caterpillar over here, and we are a partner of FICCI. So thank you, FICCI, for partnering with us. I'm going to take maybe a minute because of that to talk down a little bit about Caterpillar. So, we are a fairly diverse company. We are, we consider ourselves in three big verticals. Mining is certainly a big one. We are the world's most reputed mining equipment supplier. But we are also one of the biggest reciprocating engine manufacturers and designers in the world. And that also includes turbines, which is not necessarily a reciprocating engine, but an internal combustion engine also. And we make locomotives, we do all kinds of transportation and energy business. And we are into construction, which kind of falls in between the two segments. One thing we certainly are not, we don't produce caps, we don't produce shoes, we don't produce t-shirts, which sometimes people ask me, those are definitely carry our brand because it stands for robustness, it stands for something like that. Actually, in mining, I was looking forward to interacting with miners because that's how we start in our companies to try and understand what our customers want. And so as a company, in terms of technology and R&D, to just give you a couple of examples, we have been operating autonomous large mining trucks. When I say autonomous means there is no driver inside. And when I say large mining trucks, I mean those that carry maybe 300-400 tons of payload at one point in time. Those are some of the trucks that you might see on YouTube channels being very integrated. So these trucks, they operate 24/7 autonomous, carry material when they run out of fuel or need maintenance, so park themselves at certain points. And we've been doing this for the last 15 years. But we didn't conceptualize this technology and then took it to our customers and said, here is the technology, here is the innovation. I think our DNA is more about working with our miners, because we don't want to do just blue sky research. We want to make sure that, that is commercially viable. That's exactly what. So actually, most of our customers drive our innovation. I mean, one very simple example where customers have driven innovation, even in India, for example, if you look at those Benz type of trucks that you have, that kind of trucks being used in mining and large construction doesn't happen anywhere else in the world, probably. So it's a very India-centric driven innovation, maybe not earth-shattering in terms of science and technology, but a very, very application-oriented innovation that has created, it's very India-driven. Similarly, China drives what they call as wide-body trucks. So instead of having trucks that live for 25 and 30 years, their mining cycles are usually short, and that's how they amortize their assets. So they have gone, and they are now taking the world by storm. I mean, even in the West, people consider these a viable apparatus to use in their mining and so on. So small, not necessarily scientifically launched, earth-shattering innovations, but they're very business viable innovations that take place. So if I look at it from a miner's perspective, and we see this worldwide, there are really three challenges that the miners face. First one is productivity, which is common everywhere, and especially in India, where the output is more or less capped in terms of price. The only lever available for you to be viable is to be very, very productive. In the West or in other countries, they just don't have too many people, so it's very important. It's run more or less like a private, or it's run by private companies. So productivity obviously is a big matter. Safety is the second one. Safety for manpower reasons on both sides, very interesting. In India especially, most of our mining operations are manpower intensive, and hence safety becomes an important element. And in many other countries, there are extremely remote areas where you don't have people going into it, and you certainly can't have people going into it. It's not a safe site, and so on. So safety is the other one. And now, upcoming, emerging one, for again various reasons, is emissions. In India, I think our emissions story is definitely linked to whatever the scientific advisor mentioned in the morning. It has got to do with our emission goals and targets, but it's also got to do with diesel or oil replacement as an imported commodity. And when you are dealing with diesel, you have to deal with issues like proliferation, which are difficult to control. So all those practical reasons are there for our thing. We put all of that together, we call it emissions. But if you see in some of the other countries, we've seen customers driving us. All these days, we thought diesel is going to stay for much longer time than we imagined it is. But now we're seeing our customers push us. Many of our very large customers have already declared zero emission goals. And now they want us to work with them to develop all their technologies along with their mindsets in order to do this. So yes, fuel cell operated or hydrogen powered, overhead electric powered, battery powered vehicles. All those technologies are viable. It's not very simple to convert battery powered large mining trucks. We are carrying 400 tons of load. And if you were to convert that to a battery, that whole payload capacity might just go and carry batteries, which is not necessarily viable. So we face very unique challenges in these things. How do we, and this is my first recommendation I only have two, for us to consider over here, is we see in other parts of the world, miners especially put up a goal, they put up a beta site, and they invite people to co-learn about what would work, what would not work. Say, for example, many of our customers have now created zero emission sites and zero emission targets in the next 10, maybe 15 years, and they're pulling along Caterpillar and many other companies along with them to work, because one company cannot provide these kind of solutions, and there's no one-size-fits-all for them. So we don't have that equivalent here in India. I mean, a majority of our interaction with miners is through tenders, which is mostly reactive, and that's certainly not a place where you can come up with any new ideas or whatever. So creation of certain beta sites where there are objectives and goals, and I know Coal India has some, but we've not seen a lot of industry participation into those things. So that's that would be my recommendation, number one. And as far as mining equipment manufacturing is concerned, I heard manufacturing is required. Yes, we need all that ecosystem over here. But the reality is that large mining equipment is an extremely capital-intensive venture, and it's very cyclical. I mean, it's not that you will take us all throughout the year at a constant level. So one has to be in the business for a very long time, and you have established your factories and set up in order to produce. It's not going to be just easy to move all of that over here. India locally doesn't offer the kind of scale to do that completely locally. But if you break that down into things that are components and systems, take everything right from electrical components, meters, lights. I'm talking about the mundane stuff, not even talking about the semiconductor and the other stuff, to all the mechanical things from large castings, forgings, gearboxes, and even fabrications, etc. There is a big opportunity that we see. I mean, as a company like us, we would like to source from India, but we simply don't have as many sources that are, and we have global suppliers. So encouraging our global suppliers to put up their flags and their capacities over here, it probably makes more sense in whatever is going on in the world right now, especially the troubles we have with some countries, which is where majority of the supply chains work. So incentivizing that kind of where you will make components for India and more importantly for the world, because that's the only way we are going to have large suppliers come to India. So that will be my second point, which is to do this. And as far as the other R&D is concerned, I think it's been spoken a lot about in terms of IT software, smarter machines, and all of that is absolutely right. My personal opinion is that we are very well positioned in terms of whatever is going on in our industry. In fact, a large amount of autonomy, a large amount of connected, a large amount of smart machine research, development, engineering is already being done in India. IT does a lot for the world over here. And we have a wonderful competitive advantage in terms of cost and quality over here. So maybe that will grow on its own. Maybe it doesn't need an infusion of anything else. But these two sectors, especially creating pilot sites, because you can't do blue sky research in imagine, especially not in mining. So it has to be partnered with miners. And the second one is this opportunity in components. So thanks.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vanishwar. Thank you so much, for coming and mail us, and we'll look at it. Thank you. Thank all of you for your wonderful suggestions. We'll take it forward.